This week, I'm taking you behind the scenes of my off-season training, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how it all fits together. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you've been following along on Instagram or through my emails, you know I've been talking a lot about off-season training. So today I'm kicking off a week-long look into what my own off-season training actually looks like. I'll walk you through my training day by day, explain the reasoning behind each session, and give you some background on what the off-season even is, so that you can start thinking about how to build your own training. Before we get into the details of off-season training, let's take a zoom out. To really understand off-season goals, you need to understand the bigger picture of sports seasons. Sports seasons are used to balance training, performance, and recovery in a way that helps you make sustainable progress while avoiding overtraining, injury, and burnout. There are 4 main seasons you can break your training year into. These are the off-season, preseason, in-season, and postseason. Today we're just focusing on the off-season, but if you're curious about all 4 sports seasons, I'll link my seasonal planning workshop in the description. So what's the point of the off-season? In short, the off-season is when you take a step back from prioritizing performance and focus on rebuilding your base. It's the time to get generally good and generally strong so that you're ready for the more specific training and performance phases that come later on. So let's get into my planning for the week. It's Sunday, so I am mapping things out. I'd like to get in 3 climbing sessions, 3 finger rehab workouts, and 2 strength workouts. Like I said, I'm planning out 3 climbing workouts. These are a fun/quick send session, a what I call soft skills session, which is focused on creative movement and problem solving. And then lastly will be a technical skills focused session to practice a specific movement. When I'm building out my week, I also like to think about the volume and intensity of each climbing session. It helps me avoid stacking too many hard sessions or too much volume back to back. So I'll go ahead and backfill these. And just a quick note on the quick send/fun session. Normally in my clients' programming, or typically if I wasn't rehabbing a finger right now, that would be my heavy volume session. But just taking into account my pinky tendonitis, I'm overall backing off on volume and intensity in my climbing workouts. I know I want to go to the gym on Monday, which is tomorrow, Thursday, and Saturday. And Wednesday is always a rest day, so that's blocked off. Since I've lifted during my last 2 gym sessions, I'll take a break from that on Monday and plan to lift on Thursday and Saturday. I always include finger rehab on the gym days right now, so I'll plug those in. I actually have a session with a client on Saturday, and since I'll be coaching more than climbing, that will be my light session, and tomorrow I'll do a medium session. It's Monday and I am at the gym. The session that I decided to do for today is going to be the soft skills session. Really, I could have gone either way on the medium volume climbing sessions, but I decided on this one because there was some new slabs set on Friday, and I think they would make a really good opportunity for the boulder learning exercise. So today I'm going to be doing 3 ways and boulder learning, both of which I've made some videos on previously, and I will link in the description. So I just finished up my finger rehab and I'm going to get warmed up on some white tags, and let's talk about what we want from our climbing sessions during the off season while I get warmed up. As I mentioned earlier, the goal of your off-season climbing workouts is to get generally good. This means working on broad skills and patterns that might be holding you back. You can reflect on what came up during your performance season, or maybe you already have some things in mind that you'd like to work on and just haven't had the chance to address them yet. The off-season is the perfect time to do that. Today I'm doing what I call a soft skills session, which is a lower intensity day focused on creativity, problem solving, and tactics. These sessions are great for developing your climbing without pushing your body to the limit. These sessions can look like working on anti-style climbs, practicing route reading, or giving yourself different movement challenges. Today I'll take you through the 3 ways drill and the boulder learning exercise. All right, I'm going to start the 3 ways drill. I'm going to do it on this blue hold white tag. I'm going to go ahead and do the whole boulder, show you how I originally did it, and then we'll brainstorm a couple more different ways to do it. So that was the whole boulder. For the 3 ways drill, I'm just going to be doing this first move a couple more different ways. I saw some pistol squat beta where someone spanned all the way to the foothold on the volume and then stood up. I don't think I'll be able to do it exactly that way, but it seemed like cool beta, so I'm going to try and explore it. When trying the pistol squat, I was having a lot of trouble without a left hand to help stand up out of it, so I quickly realized that this wasn't going to be my method. I then started to play around with the idea of trying to mantle off of the foothold on the volume instead, and I do think that it is something that would work for someone just a little bit taller than me. I was getting pretty close to being able to grab the foothold, but wasn't able to quite get there. So instead, I started trying different versions of the original move. So first I did the dynamic stand up to the foothold, which felt good, and then I really wanted to stick it without grabbing any handhold. So I tried that for a handful of attempts. Well, technically I did that 3 different ways, so we'll move on. Next, I'm going to get on this black hold yellow tag, and again, I'll climb it through just so you can see how I did it the first time in my way, and then we'll try the first move 2 more different ways. This top sequence was feeling a bit harder on this day than the first day that I did it. The hold that my hands are on is really bad, and it was just feeling very unstable and sweaty, so I ended up needing to rework my beta on the fly. The way that I did the first move originally on this climb was actually a beta break. I was grabbing a foothold, and the intended beta was this coordinated palm press where you press down with the right hand and then grab with the left hand, and this beta is definitely not my style. It was definitely giving me some trouble. I tried just doing the press and taking the coordination component out of it, but that wasn't working, and then luckily I just stuck it one time. I think it'd be a great exercise to go back and try it again with that method. And then the third way that I tried it was actually the most physically intense. It was this high left foot and just crimping really hard with the right hand and doing a slow mantle by pressing up with the left hand. That's 3 different ways for that one. The last way I did it was definitely by far the hardest. I'm going to take a little break and then I'll move on to the boulder learning exercise. There are 3 new yellow tags on the slab set, and I've been told they're all kind of funky, so all great options for this exercise. The goal of the boulder learning exercise is to challenge your problem solving abilities. So you'll want to find a climb or a couple of climbs where the hardest part about them is the complexity. So it should be less about physical intensity. It shouldn't feel super physically strenuous, but it should feel like a puzzle that you're just trying to figure out step by step. So this is why I recommend doing it on more vertical or slab walls and things that just have a trickier sequence or movements that require some learning. This climb was certainly complex and tricky through this volume section. There were just a couple of footholds for handholds on the volume and just navigating around and figuring out how to get into the position to reach up to the better hold. Took a lot of thinking and feeling out. Since I flashed the pink climb, I moved on to another yellow tag on the wall. What I found was really interesting about how I was climbing both of these yellow tags was just really hesitant, really conservative, just not committing to things. And it ended up being to my detriment. I think it would have been better if I had just trusted and gone for the hold. So just something to observe in my climbing, and it is something that I observed earlier on in my rehab as well. And I think as my finger continues to heal and I gain confidence in that, I think it'll be important to really work on being more decisive and committed in my climbing. These two climbs went a little quicker than would be ideal for the boulder learning exercise, but that's all right. I feel like I got a good amount of volume in with the 3 ways drill, and like I got my share of slab climbing in. I will see you tomorrow for running. Good morning. I'm just taking my dogs out before I meet my friend for a run this morning. It is feeling warm and humid already. Running is something I picked up towards the beginning of my rehab because my climbing volume was quite down and I was just looking for another activity to do to keep myself sane. So it's been a nice way this summer to get outside and do something active. Sometimes I do have clients kind of ask me about if cardio is important, and what I say is it's not anything that you necessarily need to force yourself to do unless you do have some goals where having an aerobic base would be really helpful. But if it is something that you enjoy doing, there's not necessarily a problem with continuing it as long as the mileage or intensity isn't affecting your recovery for your goals or your climbing training goals. So once a week's a good fit for me. We do probably 2.5 or 3 miles very slowly. So we're not breaking any records out here for sure. And one of my favorite parts about running this summer with my friends is we've been going near this coffee shop and always get a little treat at the end. Another rest day today. We are on our way to go play some disc golf, which is a new hobby I've picked up. I am still very bad at it, so be prepared for some pretty funny footage while I talk about active versus full rest days. Why don't you introduce the hole to us, Davis?
Really?
Yeah.
No, I'm definitely not doing that.
Here we got a par 3, 309. Gotta hit this. Where's the Mando? The Mando, and yeah. Addie, I might actually get a par on this one. What do you think? Let's talk active versus full rest days. So the difference between the two is that a full rest day is when you're not putting any stress on your body. So yesterday was an active rest day because I was running, and even though I wasn't stressing my fingers, I was still stressing my body. And my body isn't going to differentiate whether the stress is coming from running, whether it's coming from lifting, whether it's coming from climbing. Even though it is stressing different parts of my body, it is still overall not a full rest day. On a full rest day, I'm not doing anything that is strenuous. So for me, that looks like disc golf. It looks like going to the creek, walking my dog, stretching. All of those things are low enough intensity that they are not strenuous and they're not putting any additional stress on my body, and my body can really recover from the hard work I'm doing on the other days. I am a really big proponent of having at least one full rest day a week, if not two. Really, for most people, I would recommend having at least 2 full rest days a week. Back to the gym for my next session. I climbed some red and green tags to warm up, and now I'm doing my rehab block lifts. So I will talk you through my next session. Since I did the soft skills session on Monday, I'll be doing the fun/quick sends session today. The newest set is the 30-degree wall, actually straight behind me. I'll warm up on the white tags there and then scoping out the new yellow tags on the set. So I'll start with those. I'm feeling pretty good after 2 days off of my fingers, and like I mentioned before, normally this would be a heavier session day, but because I'm rehabbing my tenosynovitis, we're going to keep this at a more medium volume. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about this quick sends session. So this is my highest intensity and highest volume session of the week, but the exact focus of this session will vary based on the individual and their goals. For me right now, I'm limited by my pinky, so I'm not climbing at full intensity right now. So instead of doing something like projecting at my limit, I'm using this session to practice putting climbs together quickly that are at the upper end of what I'm currently allowed to do. But in contrast, for example, for one of my clients whose goals are more sport climbing oriented, we've structured this day around limit bouldering. So she's focusing on trying hard moves, solving cruxes, and building strength before switching to more specific sport climbing training in the preseason. So while the exact structure of this session may vary, the common thread is that this is the session where you feel like you are trying hard. It's also worth saying that during the off season, it's totally fine to let this session be fun, because we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves in the in-season, and allowing some flexibility can help prevent burnout during the off-season. So if you want this to be a more social session, if you like projecting with your friends, that totally makes sense, especially because you'll be taking longer rests between the higher intensity moves and can chat and help pass the time while you get ready for your next go. The one thing is to be careful not to slip into this social projecting for every session, because then we start to lose the intention behind the sessions. We can lose track of volume, and it can be a pretty fast track to overdoing things. For this quick sends session, I also sometimes call it a short-term projecting session. We're looking for a climb that will take you between 1 to 2 sessions to do. So it's going to be a nice middle ground, not a climb that you're going to be able to flash or do within a couple of goes, but it's also not going to be a limit level project. It should feel challenging but very achievable, but it will take some work to figure out your beta, figure out the moves, and then also some work to put it all together. This way, it's really great practice for executing climbs. This climb was a perfect fit for this workout. This first sequence took me a while to work out, and then the end was pretty straightforward and just keeping things together. What was funny when reflecting on how I was figuring out these moves is that the sequence I ended up figuring out was way simpler than what I was originally trying. I think I was getting a bit confused with how to use this foot feature and just made things more complex than they needed to be. If we take a look at how long this climb took me from start to finish, it was 25 minutes, which is about what we're looking for this workout. I would say a climb that takes around 30 minutes to an hour of effort, whether that's in a single session or split up over a couple of sessions, is about the difficulty that we're looking for. For example, on this orange climb, I started the process on this one kind of knowing that I wouldn't have the energy to put it all together, but I do feel pretty confident that I'll be able to come back on my next session and execute it. And as a reminder for your strength sessions during the off season, it's all about building a solid foundation so that your body can be resilient and handle the sport-specific stresses that we'll put on it later. So here, consistency is the key. I'm not going to dive into specific programming philosophy in this video, but if you're curious, I'll link my Intro to Strength Training for Climbing video in the description. Happy Friday! Today is another rest day for me, and what I would say is my most restful rest day of the week. Today I'm just going to be working, and maybe if the weather allows I'll take Addie on a walk later and do some stretching, but overall just going to really chill out today. I want to use this last rest day to talk about what I call auxiliary activities. These are things that can definitely support your climbing, but they aren't the main priority. For me this off-season, two examples are running and stretching. Like I mentioned on Tuesday, running has been a fun way to get outside with friends this summer while keeping up a cardio base. And stretching has been helpful because admittedly, mobility is a weak point in my climbing. And while both of these have been great, I don't stress about optimizing them. Auxiliary activities are helpful if you have the time and energy, but they can't sustain your climbing on their own the way that priority activities like climbing or strength training can. And to be honest, I don't particularly enjoy running or stretching, so the biggest barrier isn't programming, it's motivation. This is why I keep the bar low and focus on building the habit rather than trying to do a perfect version of the exercises. So the takeaway here is to lower the barrier to entry. If you keep it simple, you're much more likely to follow through, and that's where the real benefits of the auxiliary activities come in. Good morning. I'm getting ready to go to the gym to meet my client for our session. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the plan for today. The session itself is an hour and a half. The first part of the session, they filled in the 30 yesterday, so there's going to be a handful of climbs that I haven't been on or seen anyone on yet. The first exercise we'll do is as we warm up, each do the climb in our own way without watching each other, and then try and complete the climb with the other person's beta. We did this exercise on 3 different climbs, and it was pretty fun to compare and contrast. And And then for the boulder learning exercise, we worked on this white hold white tag. My client wants to work on more dynamic and coordinated movements, so the initial run and jump was a really great move for us to work on. And then afterwards, I did my lifting, and it was a great light volume climbing day and lifting day. All finished up now. I would say the week went quite well, was able to stick to the program, and tomorrow is another rest day. However, I am not sure what I am doing because it's my birthday, and for my birthday, I wanted to not plan my birthday, so Davis is in charge of that, so we'll see what's in store, but I'm going to take the day off of filming, so I will sign off now. I hope you enjoyed watching a week of my training. Let me know in the comments if you found it helpful or if there's anything you found surprising. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.